Good evening, everyone. How are you? I hope you guys have had a great week. I am going to do my best to get through this in the best of my abilities. So, um, first off, want to start out that I did get some songs scheduled for you guys on Sunday. So there's, I think, two acapella songs coming tomorrow, two the following week, and one I think the next Sunday. So they are acapella, so I scheduled them on Sundays. Um, it was, I think, the last CD that I could find that was acapella. So this is going to be unscripted, and as you can kind of tell with my movements, I'm a little nervous about this, but a lot of things has happened this week, not just in America, but in the world. And I wanted to take a moment to just kind of discuss that a little bit. Um, we had an assassination on Thursday. Now, those of you who have followed me for the past 5 years or so, almost 5 years, it'll be 5 years in November since I've really dug in deep into this channel and rebranded the channel. I'm not much for politics. And I will say this, I did not even know. So you guys are hearing this for the first time for someone who did not even know Charlie Kirk. Okay. Those of you who did not know Charlie Kirk, as I did not, he had founded Turning Point USA. He was devoted to talking to people, getting followers, especially a younger generation or a younger crowd, and was just open for discussion with them. Unfortunately, being open and having that freedom of speech that we have here in America led him to his death. One thing I do not condone, I do not condone anyone celebrating the death of someone else. People were calling this like Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. did the exact same thing. He stood up for what he believed in. And he was trying to gather people and find a unity in people. My heart just aches. And I don't even know this family. I don't know this individual, but my heart has literally ached the past few days. Now, Leslie, my girlfriend, she knew who Charlie Kirk was and actually followed him on YouTube. He definitely was the CEO of this Turning Point USA, which I've got to dig a little more into. But yeah, it is such a tragedy. Such a tragedy to lose your life over something that you truly believed in, and he truly believed in what he did. It's scary. It is a scary world. And I tell you what, just, right now, like I had to shut off the news because I don't know if it's just one base political party or not. I don't know. Of course, the media likes to lie to you about things. And at this point, I really don't care because I'm one of those guys where I am independent. I know what's right and wrong. I know the difference between right and wrong. And for the assassin to do that, that was definitely a wrong thing to do. I was raised to know the difference between right and wrong. I was also raised to use my heart and not think with my mind, if that makes sense. So I've put together the widow of this Charlie Kirk spoke for the first time yesterday. Granted, it was a 16-minute long video, I ended up editing and cutting some of it out. But I want to play you my version of the video, which is about 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes long, something like that. I want to play you my version of that video and what I took from that video. This is a woman who is grieving. She was devoted to her husband. Her husband was devoted to her and the kids. They have 2 little kids that are now fatherless for a senseless act. There was no need for it. This guy did not mean any harm to anyone. He only spoke his mind freely. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. I really feel for the world. I really do. Raising 2 kids of my own, I did my best to teach them right from wrong. I let them know when they were not doing something right, and I corrected them. And that's just who I am. That's how I was raised. And I wanted to do the exact same thing with my own kids. But this woman that you're about to watch, this widow now of this Charlie Kirk, she's suffering. It took a lot of courage for her to do this video that you're about to watch. A lot of courage 2 days after the fact that her husband was assassinated. I don't know about you guys, but for me to be on here and have the freedom of speech and be able to talk to you guys and just share whatever I want to with you, I should be able to do that without being perjury. I should not have to feel that I'm going to be in perjury for it. It's just a crazy, crazy, evil world that we live in, and we got to spread as much good as possible before it's too late. And I mean that with all sincerity. So this session that we're going to get into right after this video comes from my heart, but I also wanted to share with you guys what was on my heart as well. Not only do we have Charlie Kirk assassinated on the 10th, there's a 24th anniversary. I wouldn't even call it an anniversary of the Twin Towers coming down, September 11th. So we basically had 2 tragedies within a 24-hour period. That's sad to me. So sad. I feel like America just can never recover. But we will. We will prevail. We will. All right. I'm going to show you guys this video clip of the widow to Charlie Kirk and just what I took from it, okay? And then we're going to get started on what this session is really about. But I wanted to just take a moment and just talk to you guys and just say that whoever is celebrating, whoever you are, it's not okay. Like, are you that heartless that you have to celebrate over someone's death? I don't talk to you guys about religion, but I did grow up in church. But I tell you right now, if Jesus Christ were to come back and walk this planet, I don't think he would make it a day. We pretty much know that he walked the planet for 33 years, roughly, of his life. That's pretty much what scholars have believed. Pastors, whatever. I'm not a pastor by any means. But I do know what's in my heart. But it's just a sad, sad world. All right, here's the video, guys. I wanted to show you. You guys check this out.
Good evening. My name is Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk is my husband. I first want to thank the local, state, and federal law enforcement who worked tirelessly to capture my husband's assassin so that he can be brought to justice. I want to thank the first responders who struggled heroically to save Charles's life, and the police who acted bravely to make sure that there were no other victims on that terrible afternoon. I want to thank the officers who have protected our Turning Point USA family these past 2 days. And I want to thank the Turning Point USA board, the COO, Justin Strife, and my husband's chief of staff, the amazing Mikey McCoy, for all their work in these terrible days to be the stability for our family and for the wider Turning Point USA family as well. My heart is with every one of my husband's employees who lost a friend and a mentor. I want to thank the staffers of his amazing Charlie Kirk show, who helped him broadcast from this studio, this chair. Every day he loved it. He loved what he did. I want to thank the millions of people who have shown their love for Charlie here in Phoenix, across America, and worldwide. I want to thank my husband's dear friend, Vice President Vance, and his phenomenal wife, Usha, for their love and support. You guys honored my husband so well bringing him home. You both are tremendous. I want to thank President Trump and his incredible family for the same. Mr. President, my husband loved you. And he knew that you loved him too. He did. Your friendship was amazing. You supported him so well, as did he for you. 2 days ago, my husband, Charlie, went to see the face of his Savior and his God. Charlie always said that when he was gone, he wanted to be remembered for his courage and for his faith. And one of the final conversations that he had on this earth, my husband witnessed for his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now and for all eternity, he will stand at his Savior's side, wearing the glorious crown of a martyr. Charlie loved life. He loved his life. He loved America. He loved nature, which helped him always bring him closer to God. He loved the Chicago Cubs. And my goodness, did he love the Oregon Ducks. Want me to say go Ducks, so I have to since they play on Saturday. So go Ducks. But most of all, Charlie loved his children, and he loved me with all of his heart, and I knew that. Every day I knew that. He made sure I knew that every day. Every day he would ask me, how can I serve you better? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? Every day. Every day. Such a good man. He still is a good man. He was the perfect father. He was the perfect husband. Charlie always believed that God's design for marriage and the family was absolutely amazing, and it is. It is, and it was the greatest joy of his life. And over, he would tell all these young people to come and find their future spouse, become wives and husbands and parents. And the reason why is because he wanted you all to experience what he had and still has. He wanted everyone to bring heaven into this earth through love and joy that comes from raising a family. It's beautiful. One of Charlie's favorite Bible verses was Ephesians 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. My husband laid down his life for me, for our nation, for our children. He showed the ultimate and true covenantal love. And our world is filled with evil. But our God, you guys, our God is so good. He's so incredibly good. The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. When I got home last night, Gigi, our daughter, just ran into my arms. And I talked to her and she said, "Mommy, I missed you." I said, "I miss you too, baby." She goes, "Where's Daddy?" What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, "Baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget." God bless you all. And may God bless America.
Okay. So I couldn't hear exactly what she was saying, but I've already listened to the whole speech that she gave beforehand. And after seeing her speech on the news, because it was actually on Fox News yesterday evening, and I was just drawn, like my heart just sank. And a song popped actually in my head. And those of you who are around my age probably know who this group is, but it was Starship, or Jefferson Starship, if some of you want to call it that. And this song was actually on their greatest hits album that was released in 1991. And it was called Greatest Hits 10 Years and Change. And it was from the music from 1979 to 1991. That song is called Good Heart. And they released it for the greatest hits. So after listening to this widow who just lost her husband of 2 days, mind you, my heart just had to feel, right? If you didn't feel after hearing that speech, and granted, I only gave you guys 7.5 minutes roughly of that speech because I cut it down, then you're heartless. You need God. I think everybody needs a little God in their life. I'm not saying that to be preaching to you guys. I'm just saying, why not believe? You got to believe in something, right? I'll get more into those type of sessions of where I came from. You guys will learn about my past on here. Everyone has something to deal with. Tonight, we're going to start on that session of my mom's past. I'm going to tell you, young viewers, before we get started in this journal, it is not for you. Okay? Maybe wait 10 years, maybe 15 years, and then rewatch this video when you're ready. But it's not going to be for kids. My channel is not for kids. It is for adults mainly only. But I'm allowing you guys to view this content right now because this is important. America is not the same. America was founded by the forefathers with faith. Whether you have faith in something else other than a heavenly Father or God that is talked about in the Bible or in Scripture, I hope it's a good God. I really do. So over to this song. After seeing that on the news and seeing her tears and just her passion for her husband that she just lost, and seeing her grieve, but also honor him the way that she did, that took courage, took strength, especially after only 48 hours. This song came to mind. Good heart. Give a good heart. Give a good heart. When it seems that all hope is gone and so-called friends aren't there to rely on. When the darkness makes it so hard to see, just lift up your eyes. You will see me. And I'll give a good heart to hold you so strong. I'll give you my shoulder to lean on. Gonna give a good heart that's solid and true. And I will always stand by you. When it seems no one's there to turn to, everyone's a stranger passing through, and all that's left is a broken dream. Just hold out your hand, reach out for me, and I'll give a good heart to hold you so strong. I'll give you my shoulder to lean on. Give a good heart that's solid and true, and I will always stand by you. Now there's no need to dance alone. In these arms you found your home. Take my good heart, take my good heart, take my good heart. And I'll give a good heart to hold you so strong. I'll give you my shoulder to lean on. Gonna give a good heart that's solid and true. I will always stand by you. And then the last part of the song goes, so lift your head up, lift it up. I'll show you a love to believe in. I will always stand by you. Take my good heart. And it just repeats the song. So if you guys haven't heard that song, again, that's by Starship or Jefferson Starship. That's on their greatest hits from 1991, and it's called Good Heart. Okay? Now, this is part of the session where I ask any young audience below 18 to go ahead and turn off this video. I gotta get my reading glasses on, guys. Sorry, I'm getting old. I'm gonna show you guys. Let me go ahead and blow up the picture here real quick. Show you guys the journal, okay? On this journal, you will see that I'm not lying. This is my mother's handwriting. It is written in cursive, so that's why I didn't want to make copies of this. Because I have a hard time even reading it. So I'm going to do my best. And that's all I could do, is just do my best to, I could pretty much make out a lot of her writing just because I was used to her writing for 47 years of my life. So I said 47 because she passed last year. So I'm 48 now. So we're about to get started in this. So just bear with me, okay? There may be some touching spots in here for me, and I may have to take a breather and, yeah, just take deep breaths to get back into it. So on the inside cover, my mom basically addressed this to me for my son, Jason Michael. God bless me with Jason, December 24th, 1976. Yes, I'm old. So here is how her journal starts out, okay? Her first entry was on September 7th, 2008. I thought I missed a page there for a second. So, all right. I don't know why it starts out like this, but here we go. We live, therefore we wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. My later years, I learned God's timing is not necessarily mine. But oh, how I wished it was. You're late again, Lord. Seemed appropriate for a journal for me, since it seemed God was a little late in his rescues of me in my lifetime. Or could it be me who was a little... Sorry, I'm trying to read her writing. Was a little slow in realizing God's power and believing in him. You guys are going to hear a lot in this journal from my mom that I'm reading. You'll hear her talk about God a lot, okay? My mom was very spiritual, very involved with the church that she ran, or helped run, I should say. Either way, my God and I were not always the closest of chums. She put chums in parentheses. So why now, when I am nearly 55 years young, do I want to sit down and write my thoughts down for my son and his family to read someday? Now, granted, my sister got a journal as well. Just going to pause there for a second. Sister got a journal as well that was just strictly for her. And it was mom relating to her. This one is mom relating to me. Okay? She goes on and continues. God and I are connecting on a level today that is better than any other time in my life. How I got here and why I am here now is what I would like to share. I am presently in a few different classes, helping to facilitate a small group even. I love it. One class we are studying believing in God. Do we truly believe in him, his miracles, his promises, that he can use me? I think that's what she said. The other is, what if I had only 30 days to live? What would I change? What would my priorities be? This is what prompted me to write a journal. I want to leave my son, Jason, that's me, a written journal of what my life has been, what it is, and what a blessing he has been to me during my short walk on earth. I am often reminded of the Dash story. Our lives are not about the dates on our tombstone. My mom was born 11/23/1953, and she put a question mark with an arrow leading to the question mark. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but right there. That's one thing I talked about before I started this session, the intro to this session as we begin. It's not about your beginning date. It's not about your end date when your life has ended. It's about the hyphen in between and what you did during that time to make a difference, not only in other people's lives, but also in your own life. Did you better yourself? We're going to find out what my mom did. It is more about the dash in between those dates. Exactly what I just said. What did Sharon live for? That's my mom's name, Sharon. Whom did she love? What were Sharon's passions? What were Sharon's biggest mistakes and greatest regrets? None of us have control over our date of birth or our date of death. But we do get to decide or choose how we use our dash. She put that in capitalization and in parentheses with a smiley face at the end of it. If you don't believe me, hopefully you can see it. So, my purpose in this journal, dear son, is to answer some of these previous questions that I fill in my dash. I guess I should begin the journal of my life from its beginnings. I was born November 23rd, 1953. Mom and Dad were living on Covert Street in Peaburg. I'm just going to say Peaburg at this time. By the time I was 2 years old, they bought their first house on Butler Street in Peaburg. Her brother, which is the oldest brother by 3 years, was born August 17th, 1950. Her younger brother was born December 14th, 1956. There was 3 years between each of those kids. Her dad worked at Elkin, which was a Union Carbide around Marietta, pretty much all of her life. Her mom stayed at home most of her early years and later worked at a bakery in town decorating cakes. She also worked at OVC, which is Ohio Valley College. That's where I actually went to college at. I was in high school in the bookkeeping department. Oh, sorry. Let me reread that. She also worked at OVC when I was in high school, and she worked in the bookkeeping department. Told you, her writing is hard to read sometimes. Later, she went to St. Joseph Hospital, which is no longer in existence, and schooled for 1 year as an OR technician, and then retired from the OR at St. Joe's. She was in training there while divorced from Dad at the same time that I was in nursing training. To be honest, I do not remember much of my younger years. Probably the first memories I have are a few in first grade. I remember being extremely shy and fearful of going to school. I began first grade at age 5. I got the measles, chicken pox, mumps, etc. All the big diseases in the first grade and missed a lot of school and struggled. By 4th grade, I was catching up and doing well. My parents were very active Christians in my younger years. Dad was a deacon at North End Church of Christ, and Mom always taught classes. Grandma Mousy, which is what I used to call her when I was a kid. So Grandma Mousy would have been my grandmother's mom. So it would be my great grandma. Grandma Mousy's husband was an elder there. I have fond memories of Grandma as a child. She was always so loving, always had special treats for us, and always made Christmas gatherings special. With Santa there every year, passing out our special gifts from her. We always had to sing for her before Santa came, and we practiced our Christmas carols every year to please her and watch her smile. As kids, we attended every VBS, every Sunday AM and PM, and Wednesday, every meeting night. If I read that right. It's hard to read some of this, as I told you. When I was in 4th grade, which would be 8 to 9 years old roughly, several members at North End left and began the Rosemar Church of Christ. I do have some fond memories of the church there as a child. The church began by meeting in our basement on something street in Peaburg. I can't even read it. So, yeah, my apologies on that. Can't read that writing. My family was extremely active with the church at Rosemar. Dad led singing, preached, taught adult classes, and was an elder. Mom taught classes and invited guests over every Sunday for dinner. All of us worked together as we built the present building. While there, Dad and three of the other elders, Vanoys, Coopers, and Burgesses, must be last names, bought the Burning Springs cabin on the river, and we all spent many vacations and days there fishing and swimming. When I was nearly 11, we adopted Kathy. She was 10. Another elder, Bonnie's or Vanoys, adopted her younger sister. Kathy and I are only 7 months apart in age, but worlds apart in personalities. She came from a more dysfunctional family, an alcoholic father who was abusive and took them to bars. She had an older sister already in a juvenile detention center when we adopted her. This sister later ended up in prison most of her life. Kathy had high walls and never let anyone too close to her. She was very behind in school and always did struggle with school and grades. After Mom and Dad divorced, she dropped out of high school, but later went back and got her GED. As an adult now, she works at St. Joe's as a nursing assistant and is into her third marriage. All three husbands have been alcoholics, sadly. I do not feel that Kathy has ever known happiness. This is the adopted sister. My older brother graduated from PHS in 1968, went on to OVC for 1 year, and then transferred to Harding for a degree in business. Mom and I flew to Harding for his graduation in 1972, but Dad did not even go. At that time, he was married to Hilda, the whore. Not my words, guys. My mom's words. She put that in parentheses. I graduated from PHS in 1971 and began nurses training that fall at age 17 at WVUP, a 2-year program. During my first semester, Mom and Dad divorced. I made it through my training with the help of friends. I had $2,000 in student loans that helped Mom and I eat, and I worked part-time as a nursing assistant at St. Joe's. For those of you that don't know what St. Joe's is, the hospital. I know she mentions it a few times in her journal here. I graduated from nursing in 1973, passed my boards in June, and began working at St. Joe's as a RN, registered nurse, in case you guys didn't know what RN stood for, at the age of 19 in the critical care unit. One very scared new RN, she put. Now get this, guys. She began her first job. She began that RN position making $3.57 an hour. $3.57 an hour as a registered nurse. Her youngest brother graduated from PHS in 1974. He never wanted to go to college and did not. He has worked at several plants in the Peaburg area as a millwright. Now to back up to my childhood, the foundation of my life now. As for my parents, Dad finished 8th grade as a child. He later got his GED. He loved to read history books, particularly loved the Civil War era and Abe Lincoln history. With only an 8th grade education, he was an intelligent man. He learned from books and life, I suppose. He learned a lot, sorry. He learned a lot from books and life, I suppose. His parents, I don't know if it's Lena and Earl, got married when Lena was already pregnant with Dad. Neither were mature enough and ready for a child. 17 months later, they had Dad's brother, Dallas. At age 10, Dad's mother died of septicemia. I don't know what that means, guys. I don't even know if I'm even saying the word right. After an abortion that she did, or after an abortion that she had. Sorry, guys. It is so hard to read some of this writing. I believe at this point, both Lena and Earl were alcoholics. After her death, Earl sent his boys to Akron, Ohio, to live with his sister, Nettie. Nettie. I can't read it. Dad always said these were the most I don't know what that word is. Most stable, loving days of his life, I guess. Aunt Nettie and Uncle Clyde were loved dearly by Dad. They were cool. Dad then enlisted in the Army and served in the Korean War. He was a medic and a sergeant by the time he got out. He worked in Akron for a time after the Army and then later returned to Peaburg. His childhood was tough prior to moving to Akron. Both parents were alcoholics and were at least physically and emotionally abusive. As for Mom, she was raised in Calhoun County on the farm. She was the oldest of 5 and the only girl. Life was hard for them on the farm, and being the only girl, she was responsible for much of the housework. She told me many times of how particular Grandma was about housework and dishes. I think she passed along a few of those genes. And then Mom put a smiley face at the end of that. Mom excelled in school and graduated. She's talking about her mom. Graduated high school at the age of 16. She even got a certificate and taught school to the younger kids for a year or so after graduation from Calhoun County High School. Around 19 to 20, Mom moved to Peaburg in a something house. I can't read it. She worked various places here. This is where Mom and Dad met. They met through friends, and the romance evolved from there. Mom and Dad were married at the farm on August 1949. They had very little and spoke of crate box they used for talks and furniture. So their furniture was crates and boxes, it sounds like, from what I can make it out of the writing. When Mom was pregnant with my mother's older brother, they ran a restaurant on the south side of Peaburg, and Mom did all the cooking. Hard to imagine. They also had Grandpa Stanley living with them off and on because he was a homeless alcoholic. Even at this point, he was a mean drunk. In 1952 or 53, Grandpa and Mildred met, and apparently Mildred was instrumental in getting Grandpa sobered up and back into the church. To my knowledge, he never drank again. Dad always kept in touch with Grandpa. Dallas moved to Cincinnati, and to this day has never had much to do with the family. Mom's father died when Mark, which is my mom's older brother, was just a baby. He had a massive heart attack on the farm one day at only the age of 45. He farmed and built houses all of his life. Grandma Mousie, my great-grandmother, lived on the farm for a time and then moved into Peaburg also. She later married Fred Moreland, who then also died of a heart attack when I was in high school. I stayed at Grandma's a lot after Fred died. I also lived with her for a few weeks while I was in college due to being so sick with mono. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks with high fever of 103 to 106. I was so very weak. Mom was still in the school also and could not care for me, so Grandma did. As you know, she died in the mid-90s after a massive stroke. I do remember my Grandma Mousie. Great Grandma Mousie. The reason why she was actually called that was because she would actually literally give us all great grandkids mousy kisses. So she'd come up to your cheek or whatever and go, and it just sounded like a mouse. That probably didn't sound like a mouse to you, but yeah. So that is the story of Mom and Dad up to the time I entered the world. As said before, I do not remember most of my younger years up to about 4th to 5th grade. Scary, but true. I remember being very fearful of Grandpa's family. I have some clues as to why, but I'm not 100% certain. I can literally recall shaking as a young child when I was around him, although I recall very little. I never was close to him or Mildred. I do recall all my teachers' names. By 4th and 5th grade, I began to remember more. My favorite all-time teacher was Mrs. Maxwell in 5th grade. I brought her peace roses several times. She loved them, and I am certain I was her favorite. She put a big old smiley face at the end of that. JFK was assassinated November 22nd, 1963, when I was in 5th grade. I developed a cyst on my upper jaw also that year and had to have surgery after my face swelled up twice its size. I lost my 2 front teeth again, and this began the false teeth saga. I was a crossing patrol at Emerson Schools in 6th grade, and that was a big honor at that time. I was able to go to school patrol trip to Washington, D.C. Still very shy. We rode a train to D.C., and I sat with the school principal, also a sweetie. It was a neat trip. Sorry, I got to skip pages here. One of my best friends in grade school was Penny Sutton. Her parents built and owned the skating rink next door to the school. We would sneak over to the rink at lunch and after school to get candy bars, etc. I also got free skating a lot, and at one time was a pretty good skater. Dad and Mom also took us skating. We all enjoyed our skating nights. From 3rd to 6th grade, we lived in Butler, 45th Street off Stella and Peaburg, wherever that is. It was a large house that Mom and Dad built, but due to rising finances, they sold it after my sixth grade year. We then moved to Vienna, a much smaller house. One of my memories on 45th Street was I was one of the few girls in the neighborhood, and I began and became a tomboy. I played war, marbles, football, baseball, croquet, etc. with all the boys in the neighborhood and could keep up with the best of them. One day, a boy that lived behind us got upset when I beat him at marbles and he wanted to fight. It did not last long because I threw a lucky punch and bloodied his nose. Sounds like something my mom would do. I lost my place. He went crying into his house, and the next thing we all knew, his older sister came out and cussed all of us out. We all just laughed and left. That sounds like my mom. It really does. That is the first and last time I ever boxed, though. My older brother was kind of proud of his little sister. I imagine so. During my grade school days, Dad worked at Elkham, and Mom began working at a bakery in Vienna. She decorated the cakes. There were some days we went to the bakery with her, and the owner would give us fresh glazed donuts as they were made. I loved them. Mom and Dad were very involved in the church at Rosemar, grades 3 through 6. We were always at the building and always had people over for dinner and parties at our house. These were some of my fondest memories. Mom always busy baking and cooking. She sewed many of our clothes. I rarely had much choice in the clothes that I wore. They were always hand sewn or handmade, or we also had hand-me-downs from cousins. Dad also worked most of the time. Between his job at Elkham, church, and home. Both of my parents were extremely hard workers, and I suppose instilled that into each of us kids. We all worked around the home, more so than our friends had to, it seemed. I remember thinking it's so unfair that other kids were outside playing when I was stuck inside cleaning the house. But I know we all grew up with good work ethics, if nothing else. Here's where it gets a little iffy, guys, in my mom's journal. And I'll pause when I get to a certain point because I want to talk about it a little bit. As for the abuse in my background, this is my mom talking. It began during my grade school days also. Even though Gail, which would have been my mom's psychologist at the time, feels with my memory losses, it was probably much earlier or sooner than that. Maybe the fear of my grandfather, probably more with my dad than I remember. But I do remember it beginning by third or fourth grade, which she would have been anywhere between 8 to 10 years of age. I remember him telling me all fathers do this, just no one talks about it. And I should not talk about it either. This is my mom's handwriting, guys. My mom's handwriting. Back in those days, those dark days, if you were being abused by your father or your mother, you did not say a word. You kept your mouth shut or you might die. That's point blank. That's how it was back in the 50s and 60s. I kid you not. I also recall Mom telling me to go wake Dad up before supper one evening. He worked midnights a lot. I told her numerous times I did not want to. I knew what would happen. She kept insisting and made me do it. Then 10 to 15 minutes later, she came up and saw him fondling me. He denied it all. I felt shamed, and it was never discussed again. She had to have suspected to even set me up like that. Yet she never confronted the issue or tried to protect me. Isn't that sad? I mean, the more I sit here and think about it, sorry, just taking a break for a second. The more I sit here and think about it, you got an abusive father who is literally fondling my mother, but yet her own mother would not stand up for her and totally deny that it was even happening. The main reason why I'm bringing all this before you guys right now is because of the fact that things like this still happen. We don't know about it. It still happens because people say, hush, shh, quiet. I will find you and hunt you down. Let's continue on. As a mother of two beautiful children myself, I cannot even imagine such an apathetic, non-emotional response. I would kill for my kids, and I have struggled with mom's role in all of this for years also. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there again for just a moment before I continue on in my mom's journal. I was not told of my mom's abuse situation until until I should say I was in high school. No idea that any of this stuff had happened. The only way I caught on before my mom started discussing this, we were banned from seeing my grandparents for a year. Literally a year. I kept going up to my mom and I'm like, why? Why can't we go? Why can't we go? Just to tell you a little bit about my grandfather, okay? This is the molester, the one that caused the abuse. When I was a kid, 12 years of age, he was my hunting buddy. He was the first one that showed me how to clean a rifle, take a rifle out, and go shoot some game. What I mean by game is either turkey, squirrel. That was really the only two things I learned from him. So growing up around my grandparents, and here I was in high school, I didn't understand why I couldn't go see them anymore for a solid year. Shortly after that, that's when the news came out. That was when my mom had been in counseling for several years prior to all this. So all these memories and triggers started popping up, okay? But my sister's 5 years younger than me. So I don't know if she was told exactly right then and there because she was younger and I was still in high school. I was high school age. But that was when I was first told about it, okay? But yeah, I literally went for a year. And my mom explains this later on in the journal. But went on for a year without seeing my grandparents. And that was when I found out. Okay? Continuing on. Back to the journal. Better get my glasses back on. All in all, my father was more loving, emotional, caring, one of my parents. He hugged all of us, brought home special treats, just showed more emotion. He had close friends and seemed to love people in general. Mom, on the other hand, had her walls. She never seemed to let anyone get very close. To my knowledge, she has never had a close friend she confided in or went out with. Hard for me to even imagine who has had so many close friendships. In just recent years, Mom has finally said, "I love you" a few times. To this day, she still has me write cards for her because she cannot express herself. And my mom said at the end, sad. That is sad. Your own mom doesn't have any emotions, can't express herself. I don't know too many women that can't do that. And I'm a man and I express myself. So that's just hard for me to imagine out of my grandma. So God rest her soul. You know, she passed several years ago, but I can even remember as a young girl, if I got scared in a bad thunderstorm, it was Dad who held me, not Mom. So maybe all this also played a role in my becoming a surrogate wife, so to speak, in all this mess. At the same time, though, Dad was more impatient with kids and felt they should always be seen and not heard. He was particularly hard on my youngest brother, who was the most active and hard-headed out of all of us. So as a younger child, this is how I perceived my parents. Every few years, we did take vacations. I recall 2 of those. One to Niagara Falls in Canada, great place, by the way, and other in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Stop there for a moment. My mom loved the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. That was definitely one of her go-to places. She, of course, loved waterfalls. So to hear that she went there as a kid did not surprise me because my sister and I also went there quite a few times as kids. So just really neat to know the reason why we probably went there is because mom enjoyed it. So, all right, back to the journal. I think these were good times. After we bought the river cabin near Elizabeth, most of our vacations were spent there. After my 6th grade year, we moved to Vienna that summer. I entered Jackson Junior High that fall, knowing only one person, and of course, I did not get in one class with her. I was scared to death, but it did not take long for me to make lots of friends. Of course, if you guys knew my mom, she could make friends just like that. Real easily. Never had a problem. She could just talk to anybody. Jenny R., I'm not going to say a full last name, and Beth T. are 2 junior high friends that I still have contact with to this day. I was pretty athletic and competitive. Gee, imagine that. Must run in the family. Competitive in junior high, and it was in 7th grade that I did 150 sit-ups and won, but then could not sit up for a week. I loved all kinds of sports then, but girls did not have team sports like they do now. Beth and I became best friends between 7th all the way to 9th grade. Her father preached at Grand Central Church then. She had had rheumatic fever as a child, and her mother was always overprotective of her. I did a lot of things with the Grand Central teens back then and was good friends with several of them. A few years, many of us went to Camp Provida, and Camp Provida, let me just explain that. Camp Provida was a church-based boys and girls just camp, hangout place for like a week. I'd been there myself. Um, let's see. Lost my place. I usually rode the bus back and forth to school each day, usually once a week. Beth and I would walk home after school, which usually took an hour. We loved just talking with each other on these leisurely walks. Several of us girls also had slumber parties during junior high. We loved playing with the Ouija board, which I can't see my mom actually doing that, but okay. They played with the Ouija board and levitating each other. Seems very strange out of a young girl who believed in God, right? We played records and chatted a lot. Several of those slumber parties were in our basement in Vienna. So there are many good memories of junior high. The abuse from my father began when I was around 8, before our move to Vienna, but it grew worse the older that I got. Dad had remained very active at Rosemar Church and was still an elder, but he began to act out with other women and made many comments to them and began to threaten me more not to talk about anything that was occurring. He warned me that if I talked, the entire family would be torn apart. He would leave mom, and it would all be my fault. So imagine how I felt 5 years later when it all came to pass. By age 11, I was beginning to feel a great deal of shame. It was then that I was baptized for the first time. Part of me thought Dad would not touch me if I was a Christian. Better yet, God would protect me, right? Well, it did not work. Things only grew worse. Dad would take me alone to the river cabin to work, would open the bathroom door on me, and do many things I did not even want to mention. I felt I could not tell anyone. Fear and shame prevented it. No one would believe me even if I did say anything anyways. This fear was only made worse when I was in the 9th grade. Dad took me to Cincinnati, Ohio with him one weekend to visit his brother Dallas and Lois. I have always been a light sleeper for obvious reasons. They all went out to eat. They all went out to eat Saturday evening, and when Dad, Dallas, and Lois returned, they were all drunk and continued to drink. I heard all the laughter and conversations at the kitchen table, etc. All were sexual in nature. I wrote about it in my diary when I got home, and how much it upset me. Mom read my diary after that weekend and confronted Dad. Another reason I know Mom knew some of what was going on. When I got home from school on a Monday, both Mom and Dad met me at the door and marched me into the bedroom. Dad denied it all. Mom believed him. They called me a liar. They ripped up my diary and told me never to write about anything of the family ever in it again. From this time onward, I never wrote in a diary again, and I lost total trust in both my parents, mainly due to their lies and my mom always siding with Dad and living in denial. I did talk to my best friend Beth about the drinking, but that was all we ever talked about. By this time, some of the nudity and more sexual comments and behavior were beginning to openly be seen in the home. I was becoming one very troubled and confused teen. Unreal. Just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, this is a full diary that my mom wrote. I don't know how many sessions we're going to have of this. I'm going to read a little bit farther and then end this session. And we'll pick up on a second session sometime in the near future. But I wanted to get a good start on this tonight so you guys knew and understand what my mom went through. She had just a very tragic past with a man you would have thought could have been trusted, her own father, her own mother, who was active in the church. Active in the church, guys. And abuse was going on in the home. Continue on. Between my 9th and 10th grade year, we moved again. Back to Peaburg on Lakeview Drive. This house really became a house of horrors for me. The abuse increased, and Dad was more demanding. I lived in this house, though, 10, 11, 12th grade, and into my first semester of college. My high school years were okay. I was still considered quiet and shy. Yet at the same time, I was always goofing off and playing the clown. I know now this clown face was just a mask I wore to cover all the pain and confusion that was underneath. It helped me cope somewhat, I suppose. But during my high school years, I had several friends. I took all the usual medical field classes, Latin 1 and 2, algebra, chemistry. I belonged to a book club and medical careers club. Wow. I attended nearly all of the home baseball games and football games with my friends. My best friend in high school became Gene G. I'm just going to say Gene G. I'm not going to give any last name out. Who lived down the street from me. She lived with her grandmother and aunt, had a pretty messed up family also. So we cried on each other's shoulders a lot. I was still good friends with Beth and many others also, but we all kind of went different directions. Beth even left our senior year and began Friedharmon College. I think that's how she spelled it. Maybe it's Fred. I don't know. Hard to read cursive writing, guys. It really is. She was pretty smart. The rest of us were stuck at PHS until graduation. During the summers between these years, I worked. I babysat and cleaned houses. It gave me some spending money. My oldest brother, Mark, at the time, was in college, first at OVC, and then transferred to Harding. My youngest brother, Dwayne, and Kathy were at can't even read it, something junior high. I dated a few guys in high school. One was a Jim Hosher, can't even read it, who loved hot cars and was super nice guy, but immature. I loved his parents, though. Another was Al Gapsch. Can't read it. German parents who scared me, and I did not like them. Al was very smart. He was a junior when I was a senior in my chemistry class. He is the guy I went to scuba diving with. His dad was an engineer, and they had money. Of course, you would talk about money. Why not? He was really serious about me, and I broke it off. Yes, I broke it off with both of them. Just was not ready for anything serious. Another guy, a real nerd, she put in parentheses, also liked me, and I had a terrible time shaking him. Never even went out with him on a date. Al and I actually began dating again while I was in college. He was sweet to me, but still way too serious for me. He moved to Akron, Ohio with his family, and then went to a University of Florida to study oceanography. I lost track of him after that. I understand he came back to town and tried to hunt me down on the day of my wedding. He left. Anyways, those are the guys I dated prior to your dad. As for the rest of my high school years, I was a happy-go-lucky clown at school and in tears a lot at home. Dad began having affairs. He resigned as an elder, and rumors in the church began to fly. We left Rosemar Church of Christ and went to North End Church of Christ again for a time, but then both parents stopped going to church altogether. I walked sometimes and continued to try to attend, but my parents made it hard to even do that, and North End Church did not exactly welcome me with open arms. Sorry, guys. It is so hard to read this. I felt like an outcast and felt a lot of shame for the family and all Dad was continuing to do. Because I attempted to still remain connected to the church, my parents and even siblings called me a fanatic. They discouraged me to remain friends with Beth and other Christian friends. On top of all the shame, I felt like an outcast in my own family. I did not give up on God entirely, though, but church activities definitely became more limited for several years after this. The younger woman in her late 20s moved in with us for a year or so. Boyfriend had kicked her out. She was trashy. Mom and Dad began going to bars, dancing, etc. Dad had begun it all, and I think Mom felt she had to join in to keep the marriage going. There was porn and alcohol now openly in the home. All the adults ran around the house nude. There were times I was physically sick at my stomach at all that was occurring. Dad and Mom even encouraged us to drink hard drinks like vodka, and Dad continued his little affairs. Mom joined in on all the crap. The abuse of me became worse. Fights also worsened around the home and became more physical. At one point, my parents were fighting, and I tried to intervene and yelled at Dad to stop, and he threw Mom and I both down the stairs. Man, I can't even imagine. Here you are, you have a father, again, supposed to be protecting you, who's now an alcoholic, drunk all the time, apparently running around naked, and your daughter intervenes to try and stop the fighting and ends up pushing you and your wife down the steps. But yet, can't say anything, not allowed to talk. Can't talk about it. One day I came home from college classes and found Mom very upset. Dad was very late getting home from work. She knew he was with another woman. At one point, she took Dad's deer knife and threatened to kill herself. I became a tad bit upset, and about that time, Dad walked through the back door, and I screamed at him to get upstairs and deal with Mom and the mess that he has created. They got into a huge fight. I took the knife and I remember nothing after that. From there on, and even before this, life was a living hell. Nudity, drunkenness, raging fights, sex, mass confusion for me, and I could not believe how my family could be where they were. Mom finally decided to leave Dad. When my youngest brother and I got up one Saturday morning and I found Dad in bed with another woman in our basement with all of us upstairs, her name was Hilda the whore. Coal black hair from a coal black hair from a bottle and always naked. I remember Dad saying, "It is my house and I will do what I want to do." So, Mom, my younger brother, and myself packed up fall of 1971 and moved to Covert Street, which Mom and Dad owned and rented out. Skid Row is what I called it. Kathy, which is my mom's adopted sister, wanted to stay with Dad and Hilda. She dropped out of high school at this point. Dad refused to move from his house and was kind enough to give Mom the Covert Street apartment. In a matter of a few days, we moved from a middle-class family to poverty. Mom opted to go to school at St. Joseph and made $200 a month. I worked as a part-time aide at St. Joe's and was taking 18 to 20 hours a semester in nursing training. Nancy M. also moved in with me during our training, and she gave my mom $25 a week for room and board. My oldest brother was at Harding. Mom and I immediately also painted the apartment and tried to clean it up as best as we could. I used around $500 of my school loans just to buy paint, flooring, etc. to make the place livable. Grandma Mousy bought Mom a new car since we had Mom and Dad, I don't know, paid her back the loan as she could. So we had me and Mom pay her back the loan as she could. Mom usually walked to work and school, and I drove the car to college. Dad, somehow, got the divorce and only paid Mom $10 a week for childcare for my youngest brother, which was nothing. I did all I could to help Mom, but it was tough. She cried a lot and was constantly talking to me about the emotional stuff of the divorce. I think back now and sometimes wonder how I managed to maintain my sanity and made it through college. I am sure a lot of the stress of all this is what led me to becoming so ill with mono the following summer. I was working 2 to 3 evenings a week at the hospital, 3 to 11:30 p.m., going to school during the summer, doing my psych training, etc. I had to keep going in school and had to work, so even sick that I kept on going. I made it through my 6 weeks of psych training. The last evening I went to work, my temp was 103 degrees, and I finished the evening. The next morning, I had huge glands, blisters on my throat, and a temperature of 106 degrees. I could eat nothing without vomiting, and I ended up at the hospital for the next 2 weeks. I was nearly comatose for the first week and slowly improved after that. After the second week, they let me go home. This was about the first week of August. I could not climb the steps to our upstairs apartment, so I went to Grandma Mousy's for a few weeks. She had 3 steps, and I could barely make it up then. I was weak. I almost did not get to go back to school that fall, but I did with the promise I would not work at St. Joseph Hospital for a while. So I recovered slowly, and later that fall began working part-time at St. Joseph again. In the meanwhile, my younger brother was struggling and running with the wrong crowd. Since we lived in the scum city, somehow it was decided he would move to Cincinnati with my uncle. Mom could not handle him. Dad did not want him. So he went to Cincinnati that summer and also went to school there for a year. We rarely saw him. Dad and Hilda married after the divorce, and she nearly bankrupted him. He sold the house on Lakeview and moved to a smaller one on Elm Street in Peaburg. I rarely saw Dad after the divorce. I think he visited me once when I was even so sick in the hospital. My oldest brother graduated from Harding in 1972, and he did not go to, and my father did not go to his graduation, but Mom and myself did. I graduated from nurses training in May 1973, and he did not come to the graduation either. He could have cared less. It seems like Mom repeated herself a couple times, if not a few times, in this journal. And maybe that's just because of the triggers and stuff that she was facing. So yeah, it was one of those things where she just continued to write. I think she just wanted to write to her heart's content. So we're about an hour and a half in, guys. I'm going to draw to a close on this session for now. We will continue another session another time. I know this is a lot to take in. It was definitely a lot when I learned of all this as a teenager to take in. But I want you to see that even though I put on a happy face, everyone has a past. Everyone has history. And it's how we deal with that past. You're going to hear later on in this journal, I think, if I remember correctly, how my mom overcame all this, how she dealt with abuse and continued on her life the best that she could, just as we all should. And as long as we have that good heart and we know in our hearts that we could do it, not by our brains, because our brain's going to tell us something else. Our brain's going to tell us, no, you can't do it. It's always going to be negative and bam, 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 bam. You got to follow your heart. You really do. Because if you don't have it in here, then it's not going to get you through. Going with what is inside of here and following your conscience is going to lead you into trouble. It really will. I've been there before. I'm sure you have been there before. They're not good thoughts. Unless you can trick your brain into something more positive. I want to thank you guys for just joining me on this first session. It was a touchy, emotional session. We will have part 2 coming up again at another time shortly. But I'm trying to just show you guys reality, okay? Sure, I put on a happy face most of the time, but even in my life, there has not been happy moments. You will learn about that too. I've always been told to be personable with people because your story could matter to somebody else. It could mean something to someone else. It could help somebody who's also been through the same thing. My mom did that. She expressed everything in this journal. She lived it. She accomplished it. She squished it. And she was there for others when she needed to be. I'm hoping you guys can be that same light and be that same example. Just as this Charlie Kirk was trying to do, I don't think he belittled anybody. I don't think he purposely harmed anybody, but he suffered. He suffered a tragic death in the end for just being kind and debating people and trying to show them the light. Again, I don't know much about this guy, but my heart just sank when that happened because there's no excuse for it. No excuse. When you're trying to do good in the world, you should not be condemned for it. Ever. Ever. Until next time, guys. Guys, take care. Stay tough.